Hey folks, how's it going? I'm in a really good mood, and so I figured I would try and cover a game. This is a match between Vani and Rubyblood. Pardon me if last title was a bit clickbaity when two SPL players collide, because here we have other two players of around the same caliber. We got Vani, who, to my knowledge, is one of the most successful performers in last year's Ruins of Alph Premier League. I think he was even undefeated. He was a beast, and he did a really good job. He's just overall really good player. He likes fat stall. And then we have Rubyblood, who not this most recent SPL, but last SPL came out victorious in one of the most decisive games ever against Jester. This is a really good player. I really think he's someone who should not be counted out. He plays to his strengths. Likes offense, but you can never exclude the fact that he might bring stall. So we're gonna see how this plays out. Best of three. I'll have to, I'm not sure if they're on winners or losers right now. I think they're on winners. Okay. We got Cloy lead versus Zapdos. And Vani is going to go straight to his lax. So we can't count out the fact that Vani might have some fat stall, some blubber, some sort of, I said blubber, some blob that can absorb electrics real easy. We got a Fori on Rubyblood's end, so this is already interesting because I expect some sort of Fori offense. That probably means there's a boom, no spin. Even though Fori could run spin. Whereas on stall, more often than not, you're going to see spin and no boom. Maybe HP fire. There's a Licks, so Vani's team seems a little bit more standard, but with Licks and Fori, interactions can go about a bit differently. There's a decent chance that the Fori, well, with the way it played, we didn't see any Giga Drain happen, but maybe Rubyblood has a Giga Drain. Well, only time will tell. Could even have something with which to hurt Gengar, depending on how the rest of his team interacts against the spiteful ghost. Steelix is going to curse up, and we do see Sleep Talk on Vani's Snorlax. We're not quite yet sure if it's curse, although I would put my money on it not being curse, as there's a Steelix, and so it's probably not pursuit. Vani stayed in, so that kind of suggests a lot of things. Vani staying in on the Licks probably means he wanted to chip the Licks before he acted out and, switched out and do something else. Not to mention, it does check with the idea that the Zapdos is reflect, so it probably is an offensive phaser. So the Snorlax is your fat, status absorbing, special hit absorbing blob, and there's a Starmie. So the Licks is also the main answer for electrics, but that kind of gives a little bit more wiggle room for the Snorlax, because if it were to get crit by a special move, you're not jeopardized completely by Zapdos, because sometimes in GSC you just want to overload the opponent, so you use Zapdos and then you pair it with some sort of very, very powerful special offense. And so even the likes of Sleep Talk Snorlax have to watch out for Zapdos. But in this case, due to everything I already said, it looks fundamentally pretty good. Me is also just, all in all, a good check to many non-electric special attackers. It's also a good check to boom offense. So this is pretty atypical here. I like the reflect being there. Kind of doesn't really give Rubyblood room to switch to a physical attacker. And Vani mispredicts while Zapdos goes for a Thunder. But he's going to go for a double edge there. And Fori, being the mon that it is, actually is very nice on this team because it comes in willy-nilly on the EQ Lax. And it looks like there isn't a Gengar. At least, I don't think there's a Gengar on Vani's team. Okay. Rubyblood brings in Gengar on the Surf. Taking a bit of damage there. And he goes for a D-Punch, but it misses. I think he was expecting Lax. Now he's kind of forced to switch out. Had he chosen a different move, he probably would have threatened the Licks. But the Licks manages to do its job in dissuading the Gengar from staying in. The more turns a Gengar is allowed to stay in, the more dangerous a game gets. Snorlax dealing a lot of damage, and this is a very interesting 1v1 interaction, I would say, just due to how the two hold each other's team together. You know, Zapdos wouldn't win most 1v1s against Sleep Talk Lax, but nonetheless, it's still good. It still has a chance to threaten that KO. Rubyblood brings his own Lax in. And Vani stays in. We haven't seen the other moves on Rubyblood's Lax. And Rubyblood already revealed... Well, he actually hasn't revealed any Sleep Talk user as of yet, so it's too soon to say, but... I mean, I'm gonna guess it's the Zapdos. You can't say that any team has only one Sleep Talker, but you would probably say that most offense teams have at least one. Most, not all of them. Like Baton Pass or something. But I'm still not really sure about Rubyblood's Lax, to be honest. It could be... Here's one thing I will say. So he booms, right? The Fori booms. Probably wanted to catch the Lax. Takes out the Starmie, but that's still somewhat beneficial for Ruby. Because that does mean he's probably going to be able to... Oh, no. Not like this. Oh, man. Oh. That is such a... That's so anticlimactic. This was interesting, too. What the fuck? Vani wins via activity. Oof. So in that previous game, Rubyblood's timer went out. It was a game happening on Smog Tours. I wasn't following it from there, though, so it feels very anticlimactic to just see that end that way. I will take one moment just to say this. It was looking a little bit in Vani's favor. It's really hard to say that it's a favor because if we had to go off on a limb, right, there's both teams have one unrevealed, so it's too early to say, but there is one nice thing to say that Vani's Zapdos would have put in a bit of work if it just found the right opening. Without a spinner, so without a Golem on Rubyblood's team, it can get bullied a bit by the likes of Whirlwind Zap, which Vani happened to have. Alright, Game 2. Let's hope that Rubyblood manages to come back from that unceremonious defeat. So this time, Vani reveals a Curselax lead, and he quote-unquote wins the lead matchup. And Rubyblood once again brings in a Fori. He seems rather comfortable staying in. So he either has... Okay, so that's a Hidden Power Fire. I mean, it could be bug, but I don't know. I would put my money on fire. I didn't think this through, I didn't take notes, but with the Fori being in this position and the Zap lead, you should at least feel comfortable phasing out the Lax with something like a Steelix. Because Steelix can phase out Lax even if it's max attack. So it could use Roar and take an Earthquake at +6. Or, alternatively, he has a Reflect Fori, but I don't feel like he does, because he doesn't have Rest. Or I don't think he has Rest. With Hidden Power there, it kind of makes it a bit awkward. So, oh dear, okay. A lot of switching happening here. And Rubyblood curses as he's going to take one massive Earthquake. If it were Double Edge, that would have been even worse. He does manage, somehow, to set up twice. Okay. So, Vani reveals a Curse Earthquake lead. That might suggest he has a Golem in the back. Curse Earthquake Lax, in order to successfully set up, likes to have spin support. So Rubyblood has his own Curse Lax, and he is managing to weather the storm. Ever so slightly. But this could go badly for him, because if he gets a Double Edge and Recoil, then he will be in range of another Double Edge, possibly. Okay, it's Body Slam. Okay, so he does lose out on the damage in the damage department, but he is going to be able to... Never mind. Okay, yeah, he manages to rest by the skin of its fat tummy. So this interaction is pretty interesting, but as time goes on, the matchup ends up leaning towards Rubyblood's favor if he can continue to survive the onslaught of Double Edges. But he gets a bad sleep roll, and so this Lax is going to go down. So one can only hope, if they are a fan of Rubyblood, that he has another answer for this Curse Lax, because it just managed to take out the other Lax, and no, it would appear not. Vani makes a perfect call out, goes to his Gar on the boom, but now he is in a tight situation against this Tar. Not too tight, but a little tight, and the Gar is going to go down. He does not try a second Hypnosis. He just cuts his losses, although he is still in the lead, and he's going to get his spikes up on this Pursuit Tar, and he's free to surf. Also, it would appear that Rubyblood's team is probably going to be very susceptible to a late Zapdos, because it's a Tar team, not a Golem or Steelix team. Especially with the Lax gone. So this is looking pretty tricky right now. There could be a Nido in the back. Licks booms. Okay. And there's an Eggy on Vani's side. And a Stun Spore. That's interesting. Okay, so this is not at all what I expected Vani's team to be. It's too early to tell. Eggy's gonna go down. Stun Spore, no Giga Drain. Leech Seed. Okay. Well, that Leech Seed did not pay off. And this Gengar is going to really hurt something. Yeah, because the Zapdos is in the back. But without a Mon to follow up, this Zapdos is free to rest up again. Oh no! And Vani stays in, tries to attack, does not click rest. He stays in and surfs, mispredicting. Machamp takes out the Cloyster and is going to follow up with another KO going 3, 4, 1. Rubyblood manages to clutch out that game. I feel like Vani made a few missed calls there. That team is pretty interesting, though. Gengar licks Eggy. A lot of switching opportunities. Has a lot of utility, too. The Stun Spore is pretty interesting. But a bit uncomfortable in the end there, in that end game. Okay. So, Rubyblood is on the board, and they're both going to be playing this time 1 for 1. So this is the determiner. Cloy lead on either side. One goes for spikes, the other goes for toxic. Okay. Interesting here, just a little pause just to see that since Vani went for toxic first, the Cloyster has racked up just a little bit more damage. Vani goes for another toxic, nice positioning there, nice call out. Putting Lax on a timer is never a bad play. Next turn it's going to come in and take 25%. Zapdos coming in on Vani's Zapdos. Vani looks like he has a slight lead, and now Rubyblood Zap is in range, but he has a double elect this time. We see these nifty little interactions. Certain outcomes that would happen if we hadn't seen the Raikou, but since we see the Raikou, there's a completely different sequence, a lot more pivoting that, you know, with the Raikou there's a lot more pivoting enabled. So, Golem coming in here. And a Starmie. To me, it looks like both teams might have a spinner here. Starmie is going to be very interesting into double elect. Starmie offense. Starmie and Raikou speed tie with each other. But the Steelix is very nice into double elect. So long as it's not forced in too often and Rubyblood doesn't call out the licks with, say, a Hidden Power Water. Is Starmie going to spin? Yes, so we see 2 spins. Starmie takes a bit of chip damage, and it's a bit scary to stay in because it could get toxic here. Vani stays in anyways, knowing that Rubyblood's going to click. Okay, so Rubyblood decides to boom the Starmie. That's a very telling play. That should mean that in the back, there is something that really wants Starmie gone, and we've seen this many times before, including in GSC Invitational 2. Somebody won with that team. There's probably a Machamp in the back. It's too early to tell because we haven't seen any interactions with Snorlax yet. So Rubyblood's deciding to stay in with his own Lax and 1v1 Vani. Vani's Lax. And there's a Boom. Now Boom is also very interesting because Boom Lax is meant to target other Lax, not typically Cloyster, but he goes for the Boom anyways. So maybe it's another thing entirely. Maybe the Boom Lax is a great enabler for the double electric in general, because more often than not, when you curse or when the opponent curses with their Lax, they're going to stay in the next turn, so that's when you boom. Rubyblood maybe a bit preemptively booms here. I don't think he was trying to get rid of Cloyster. But it could be a double elect Hera with Boomlax. Or it could be the Machamp. It could be anything, really. It could even be an Eggy, a Gar. Okay, that Zap is going to go down, and now the situation's a bit dicey. There's a Marowak. Marowak fits in the principle of just sheer offense. Boomlax takes out Skarmory. If it's facing Stall, it takes out, you know. So it did take out the Cloyster. So this is not bad for Marowak by any means. It's a bit tricky because it doesn't want to take too much damage. And look at that. Vani bringing yet another Reflect Zap, and the Reflect lets it survive, and it kind of gives Rubyblood another opportunity to rest. He's not going to do that, though. He has Hidden Power Ice, not Water. And he's going to have to make something happen with the Golem. Maybe he will Roar? Or is he going to attack? He's going to attack. Does he get a crit? Oh, shit. Hang on a sec. Oh, no. Okay, I have to commentate this. So, the Steelix uses Curse, and it's behind a Reflect. Since it's already extremely high, with the Reflect, essentially what happens to Steelix's defense is the same thing that would happen to a Marowak's attack. It's going to roll over. And so the Earthquake actually does a lot of damage. 45%. A stat will roll over, as it says here. In Gen 2, a stat will roll over to a small number if it is larger than 1024. Yep. And he goes for a Boom, which might not be bad, because he can follow up with Marowak here. He goes, he calls out. Okay. Now the Zapdos is going to be a big deal. He goes for the Reflect, probably the right call. It's going to enable his Lax at least. And there's another Marowak. Whack on whack violence, man. Oh shit. Vani wins the speed tie. And he's definitely going to be able to take out the Raikou. Which means, ladies and gentlefolks, that Vani is going to move on to the next round. Rubyblood, I think, is sent to losers. Hope you guys enjoyed. This was a pretty exciting game. I love Marowak, man. I just fucking love it. And people using more and more of it it's always a great thing to watch. All right, then. I hope you guys enjoyed. And see you next time.